Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Northeast Ohio Sports Show. My name is Liam Matthews. Normally, we would have a co host of Hunter Kutch, but he was busy with work and had a trip this weekend, so he couldn't make it today. But personally, I really wanted to have this stream for racing this weekend. F1 starts this weekend. You could look below me and you could actually see info. Sorry about that. Info about the upcoming F1 race. Free practice basically starts in 57 minutes. Once again, we basically have these browsers in OBS. I'll tell you how I did it. Where I have NCAA or NBA games, NHL games, live scores. I believe Pittsburgh is up 2-1 over the Blues right now. Right now, we see the NCAA scores of Illinois was beating Iowa. Stanford is beating Louisville, and Louisville is ranked 13th. TTU, Texas Tech, is up against Baylor by 9. And Missouri plays Mississippi State on this today as well. In the NHL, right now, Florida and the Maple Leafs, I almost call them the Blue Jackets, are tied 1-1 with 6 minutes to go in the second. These ones might be a little bit delayed. Well, Boston is down to Ottawa with about 8 minutes left in the second. Tampa Bay is tied with Philly, the Flyers. That's my girlfriend's team. Got to give them a shout out. Once so the Blues, she likes a lot of teams. They're tied 2-2 with 2 minutes left. This weekend in F1, we have a Louis Vuitton Grand Prix in Australia, down under. Starts out at midnight on Saturday. So we kind of see the weird times how we have 55 minutes until free practice 1. If you are a F1 TV fan, they already had their weekend warm-up. That was a couple hours ago, this morning actually. So it's in Melbourne, a beautiful city right on the water. It's March 13th through March 16th. Free practice 1 is today at 9:30. Free practice 2 will be tomorrow at 1 a.m. Free practice 3 being at 9:30 as well tomorrow p.m. Qualifying's at 1 a.m. Saturday morning, Friday night. And the race is Saturday night, Sunday morning at midnight. We could also see the live constructor standings for F1 as well. And now we're going to go to basically our docket and talk about what we're going to talk about. One thing I do want to say is I'm really happy and I appreciate all the support on our last episode and our last stream that we had a couple days ago on Monday with me and Tommy. That show is going to be a little bit more serious. Same with For Healthy Living. We're going to have some like very relaxed episodes for that, where it's more like yoga based and mindful thinking and just breathing exercises. This show is going to be the show where me and Hunter get to relax, sit back. I'm going to lean back, and we're probably going to be like talking a lot. It's about sports. It doesn't need to be as serious as news or healthy living. And like I said, like not all of healthy living is going to be serious, but we'll have serious topics on that show. Whenever Hunter is in here next week, we'll be able to have his introduction. But you guys know me, Liam Matthews. Sports-wise, I like sports. As I got older, I've kind of got it more into the racing aspect of sports rather than the traditional American, like NFL, NBA, and baseball. I do like hockey, so we'll be talking about a little bit about that too. And I still like the Browns and the Guardians, but Hunter definitely loves the Browns more than me. Buckeyes I still like, and we won the championship this year, so that was great. And we'll be talking about that when that comes into play. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the 2024 F1 results. Last season in F1, there was a lot of changes. I'm kind of going to recap it for a lot of people. A lot of Americans follow it. Don't follow it, I mean, but like sometimes it's kind of getting more popular, and some do. Drive to Survive on Netflix has made it a lot more popular with like the more drama-based TV shows. And I like it. Like a lot of traditionalists don't like it, but they're doing it with everything now, and kind of like that's just the future. Like people want to see it and actually like have good insight. So just Drive to Survive is really good. I do recommend though actually watching it backwards, because like the more modern seasons make more sense. Like you're gonna remember that more. They'll be talking about it more. Over past seasons, like they don't really talk about that in modern F1. So last season there was a lot going on. Every year, basically, teams try to cheat in F1. A lot of racing has this. In NASCAR, it's a little bit different because NASCAR is so tight regulation-wise, and like downforce wise, they put them in wind tunnels before races. Like sometimes they'll try to do little flaps or like bend metal in certain parts of NASCARs to get an advantage. And since IndyCar is a spec series, just like NASCAR, it's very hard to cheat. Well, F1, the teams build their own cars. So the regulators basically have to say, okay, we don't build this car. Well, like in IndyCar or NASCAR, the regulators build the car with the parts, like basically. So let's say NASCAR, they have Ford, Chevy, Toyota. They'll tell Toyota and Chevy and Ford how to build. They'll give them all the regulations to spec. And like F1 is like that, but it's kind of harder to regulate that because you don't know like Ford or like who's making it. And the regulations are very relaxed too. When the regulations came out for this regulation cycle, which they call the like downforce era, or the bottom of a car basically will affect downforce or right now. Um, they kind of said like people weren't educated who were writing these regulations. It was true. Like a lot of people in the FIA, they do know sports, but it's not like they had an F1 team or an F1 like engineering group make the F1 regulations. These guys also do rally. They also do endurance. So like Le Mans over 24-hour races, Daytona 24 hours. The FIA controls that and does that. I'll take a quick breather break. But so because of that, a lot of teams try to cheat. Now it's been very like easy to see in the past. Back in the 80s when computers were getting big, they were trying to basically use computers on cars, and it was easy to tell if they were cheating or not. Now it's a little bit harder. So I'm saying that because there was kind of a big fuss last season. Red Bull came in, the most dominant team ever. Max Verstappen, who was the champion the past 4 years, won I think 22 races or 23 races in 2023. I should have that down, but well, we could look that up. But he basically won I think 93% of the races. I'm pretty sure that's like a fact percentage of it, which is crazy. For next year, the FIA comes out with a new regulation that you basically can't have this type of braking. So in a car, like you're basically your brake, like your brake wires, whenever it goes to your rear axle, what Red Bull was doing is they basically had it against a valve that would move with gravity. So the valve was just on a bar, and since, with gravity, the valve would move back and forth. But what basically it created was it would give more or less braking to one side of the car. If it went this way, more to the left, went this way, more to the right, or however they set it. But in F1, you can't have ABS, you can't have any type of electronic or even like physical braking. When you brake, it's all equal, 25% to each wheel, unlike if you're driving a modern car. So what that changes is, let's say you're about to turn into a corner, your car is already kind of shifting. Sorry, I hit my mic. Your car is already kind of at an angle, just like when we drive cars. If you're driving an SUV or even like the car I have, which is a lower Cadillac, you feel that before the turn. So that valve's already putting more basically brake pressure on the inside tire, which is illegal, but it also gives you an advantage at turning because whichever your inside tire is, if you get more brake power to that rather than your outside tire, your car is just naturally going to turn in more. So you have to use less steering force, and then you could basically steer out of that corner better, or that turn better, depending on what type of corner or turn it is. And basically in the past, the FIA has been hesitant, because even the team I love, Ferrari, back in 2019, found a way to cheat with the fuel flow into the engines. So basically Ferrari was pumping more fuel than any other team was into their engines and making them faster. Well, Ferrari said, hey, FIA, if you come after us, we'll sue you for hurting our brand. That's just how everything is now. It's like defamation. You're hurting the brand. They could sue them for money loss. Ferrari's a big company. The whole reason why the FIA and like Formula One's still there. So the FIA now, what they do is instead of going after teams, unless it's a crazy break, they'll come out with a new regulations and the teams have to change. So once that regulation came out, which is the Spanish Grand Prix, which I think was like the third or fourth race of the year, it may have even been fifth, because Red Bull was dominating even at the beginning of 2024. Red Bull dramatically dropped off after that. There's a lot of audio and like video of the races and Max Verstappen, their best driver, talking about for hard braking. So last year, what I thought was really interesting is the year before we had one of the most dominant seasons ever, and then we had last year where Red Bull basically barely wins, and it's like for constructors, they win for drivers pretty easily because Max is very good, and with everything going on with the other teams and even his own team, if he had a competitive driver, co-pilot or whatever, co-driver, it would be harder. But so we go from Max dominating to a different year last year. So last year, basically, I'm gonna go over results, and McLaren, Mercedes won the constructors. So that's great. Red Bull won the year before. If I'm not mistaken, it probably went like Ferrari and Mercedes, or Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren. Um, well, last year it went McLaren, Ferrari, then Red Bull got third. So they went from being first to third. And that really matters in F1 because you get like bigger bonuses at the end of the year based on how you finish in the constructors. Um, the drivers is kind of all for like show and the drivers themselves, but for money and because F1 has kind of become like a budget cap, they do have a budget cap, and they kind of become like an NFL league where like all these teams are bought in. You have to spend money. Cadillac, who's joining next year, which I'm really excited about. Every American should be. Mario Andretti, Michael Andretti backed team. They basically had to spend about, I think, 450. I'm pretty sure it's $1 million to join. And people like even the other teams like Mercedes are mad. Like they're worth billions, and like even like teams like NFL teams, you could say you could probably buy for some. You could buy for $1 billion. So Red Bull got third, and that really matters with the bonus, which really impacts the workers themselves. So the workers themselves, like engineers like me that work for the actual Red Bull, marketing people, the people that clean the toilets, all of their bonuses are based on how the team does at the end of the year. So if you get first, everyone gets max bonuses. They're very happy. Engineers are probably buying new cars and houses. But if they get third, like the team drop is like tens of millions of dollars. So the bonuses are dramatically dropping because these teams have thousands of people in them. Then after Mercedes, it was Aston Martin Mercedes. So Mercedes had a very good year. They got fourth, and then Aston Martin got fifth, who was a Mercedes powered team. Same with McLaren at one. Now, Mercedes had an interesting year because the year before this, in 2023, they had a very bad season. Lewis Hamilton basically decided in his head, I'm going to leave for Ferrari, which he's there this year, which we'll be talking about. And they had to basically overcome the problems with their car. Like during this regulation cycle, they had a lot of issues with the downforce and how to figure it out. Where the regulation cycle before, they were the best. Mercedes had the best engine, downforce didn't really matter. After regulations are in for a while, these regulations are older. The hybrid's almost been out for I think over 10 years now in F1. It becomes way more refined, so aerodynamics becomes more of a bigger deal. And the regulations play into that too, how they push things. Then we have number 6, which is Alpine Renault. It's a French team, French-owned team, because I don't know how it works, but I think Renault is like a socialist-owned, French-owned company. Not socialist in a bad way, but like just because like the people of France own that company. Everyone owns a bit of it. They're changing. A lot of people are saying when the new engine regulations are coming out in 2026, they're going to be changing to Mercedes powertrains. They were trying to build their own, but they were just saying, I guess they ran some tests and said it was bad. They're not going to spend the money. In 7th, we have Haas Ferrari. Haas is an interesting team. Gene Haas started Haas Automation, CNC mills, some of the best in the world. If you are a millwright or working in CNC, you know Haas Mills. He used to own a NASCAR team with Tony Stewart called Stewart Haas that won the Cup Series a couple years back, 2 years ago. Also a little bit shady with his money, according to the U.S. government. But he owns an F1 team, and he's actually getting way more involved. They used to have a cool guy named Gunther Steiner, a German man, who was a part of the team. They fired him because he wasn't as smart with the engineering and F1 itself, but he was very good with the people. But now that they fired him and got a better guy, they've actually been doing very better than before, and I think this year will be a good year for them as well. Number 8, we have Red Bull Honda, Visa Cash App. They have Racing Bulls, I mean. Sorry, not Red Bull. Red Bull got third, but it's their second team. They're called Racing Bulls, but still RB. A lot of people make that mistake. They used to be called like Visa Cap App, Visa Cash App, like RB Racing Bulls. They have so many different names. Then number 9, we have Williams and Mercedes. Another Mercedes powered, but not at the best. Williams is an American-owned team, but they're an American-owned team just like Haas is. So like I said, Gene Haas is American. But they're owned because of equity. So I think like an equity management company owns them, and they're based out of America. So technically they're an American-owned team. They used to be British, started by a British man named Williams. There's lots of stories there. His daughter Claire Williams ran the team for a while. I think for a while she was probably one of the most efficient managers out there, or team principals, whatever they like to call them. In 10th, we have Kick Sauber, Ferrari. Kick like the app, they got money, so they got a F1 team. Sauber is an old team that has a lot of history to it, and this team actually next year will be Audi. So Audi, as basically within the last 5 years, have been buying 20% of this team to fully transition it over to an Audi-based, German-based F1 team. I'm very excited for that, and I know a lot of other people are. They have an old Ferrari team boss, like Matteo. Very cool guy, and I'm kind of excited for what that team could be. A lot of people have issues with that, though, because in F1, they're kind of like snobby about where you're based out of, because F1's British-based, and a lot of these engineers are become aeronautic engineers or hydraulic engineers out of Britain, and probably because it's like a sport there, and it's a longer based thing. So a lot of good engineers are in Britain, like Italy. Ferrari has an issue of actually bringing people in to work for them. Now I'm going to talk about some of the races from last year, because some of the races from last year were just some of the best things, personally, I feel like I ever seen. We got to see, and I want to check real quick, but I don't think we got any. Yeah, we don't got any chats or anything. I just want to check real quick, and the stream's doing well. Another thing I wanted to do is I'm probably still going to play lo-fi in the background. But I don't know if that's going to work right now. So I'm actually going to wait on that. We'll wait on that for now. First off with Monaco. So Monaco last year, there's a driver named Charles Leclerc. He races for Ferrari. He's from Monaco. He got to win last year. It's taken him a long time to do it. He's had about like 3 or 2 chances in the past to do it. 2 real ones that like Ferrari messed up because of pits or just other drivers. He won this year, so that was great. Seeing like a home guy win his home race. Him being young, it's taken a while. For Ferrari, he's kind of a golden boy. Charles Leclerc has a lot of good stories where his godfather raced for Ferrari teams, raced in F2, and I think a little bit in F1, but mostly F2 for Ferrari. So watching him win his home race was just amazing. Probably one of the best races I've seen. And Monaco is one of the best every year. Monte Carlo, beautiful place outside of France. Next would be the Britain Grand Prix. I love this one because one of my favorite drivers is Lewis Hamilton. He has 7 championships. I believe he's like 39 or 38, and he won his home Grand Prix this year in a good form. Now his rival driver for Mercedes, George Russell, had a chance to win it, but kind of blew it, and I think his car got messed up. But it still kind of all depends. Lewis was really on track to win that race. There's some Grand Prix from Lewis in Great Britain that are just great. He's beaten people with a tire blown in Great Britain. I'm going to take a sip of. Got some Hennessy for the night. That's one thing. Thursday night, a little bit of Hennessy. Me and Hannah will be doing that. Right. Basically, it was the last lap of a British Grand Prix, and I think this is like 2018. We'll have to go back and look. Lewis Hamilton's front left tire blew up, and he still won the race. Now, I think it blew up with about like, I don't think it was a third. I think it was like 2/3 of a lap left, and Max was coming behind him. Fine tires. Now, Probably still at the end of the race tires, but not blown up like Lewis's were. And he still finished the race, and there's some great photos. And one thing I do wish we could do is show stuff like that. Show the photos, show some clips from the races. But a problem with F1 is that they copyright strike everything. Like, I don't know if they're taking the American route, but even Shannon Sharp can't get clips on his podcast that he does, his late night show. So it's going to be hard for us to do it. Like, we're not going to spend 10, 20 grand just to show an F1 clip. I got that kind of money. And now I'm actually going to switch to, and I need to read this docket real quick just to make sure. Yep, okay, we're good. So I do need to go over the drivers from last year, which I have right here on my phone. So last year, Max Verstappen got first. Then it was Lando Norris. So Max finished with 255, and Lando finished with 171. So Lando was getting a little bit more hot at the end of the year, and that was definitely shown. Like I was saying before, McLaren only won by 14 points in the constructors. They had 666, Ferrari had 652, and Red Bull had 589. So Red Bull kind of really lost in the constructors, and that was because of Red Bull's second driver, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So after Charles Leclerc, we had Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz was a great driver. He's won races. He raced for Ferrari last year, but because Lewis Hamilton was coming for Ferrari, they had to cut him, basically, and he went to Williams. Now, I love Carlos. He's a Spanish driver. His father was a rally driver. Really cool dude. After Carlos Sainz, we have Oscar Piastri. So this weekend, we have the Australian Grand Prix. This is his home Grand Prix. He is Australian. He's young. He is, his manager is Mark Webber, who I personally have a love-hate relationship with. I believe he's raced with Lewis and Ferrari, so Mercedes and Ferrari in the past. Then we have Sergio Perez, and this is why Red Bull did bad in the constructors, because he was below the two McLaren and Ferrari drivers. After Sergio Perez, we had George Russell, then Lewis Hamilton, so both Mercedes, and then we had Fernando Alonso. He's won 2-time championships before in the past, or Ferrari, McLaren, and Lance Stroll, who is Stroll's son. I forget his first name. I kind of don't care. He's a rich guy. He basically got Hugo Boss and a bunch of brands a lot of money. And that's just for top 10. I won't go too deep in about that. Now, one thing I did want to go over is basically the F1 teams and for drivers, for new American fans, just to help you guys kind of understand everything that's going on. And I am actually going to pull up the docket for this one. Because this isn't a clip or nothing, this is something that, like, they just throw up online. I could show to you guys real quick. So, I'm actually going to make this full screen. And let's zoom in to show you guys. Alright, so this is a 2025 drivers lineup. And it's not perfect. I found this online. And it's not the most up to date. But I will explain it to you guys. So, first we have Red Bull. Red Bull is a team owned by the Drink Company. They do a lot of stuff in racing. They do a lot of stuff in skateboarding, BMX, everything. Snowboarding, jumping out of spaceships and helicopters. Driver champion last year, Max Verstappen, who is Dutch. So am I, but I don't like that. It kind of sucks. Max, the reason why I don't like Max, and a lot of people don't like Max, is because his dad was an F1 driver. He kind of grew up with that, like, silver spoon mentality, having all that money, and, like, he has some anger issues. It shows on the track. He's kind of unfair with people. He became popular dive bombing people on corners. And that basically means you brake late, which is kind of illegal, and you stop the other dude from making a turn, and you kind of scare him that you're gonna crash into him, and it affects the race itself. And fairness, like a lot of old timers, and I think there's always room for improvements in racing and modernizing, but there's also like true gentlemen and just being fair that like you shouldn't cut someone's corner, and especially like right at the end, and he likes doing that. Let me move up a little bit. Then we have Sergio Perez, who actually was the driver last year, who got cut this year. I love Sergio. A lot of people love Sergio. He's a long history of working his way up in F1. Mexican driver and the only Mexican to actually podium at the Mexico Grand Prix. He ended up being replaced by someone with my namesake, who I'm probably older than, and his name's Liam Lawson. He is a New Zealander, and cool name, especially that LL, but he's young. He raced for that Racing Bulls team last year and helped cover for them. Next team we're going to have is Mercedes AMG Petronas. I can remember that pretty easily, out of Germany. Red Bull is based out of Great Britain, but really the company Red Bull, like the racing team, is based out of Great Britain. The company Red Bull is based out of Austria, is basically what I'm trying to get to. And the Blue Jackets scored, the Blues scored, and the Penguins are up 3-2. So, for Mercedes, they are based out of Great Britain, but the car company is based out of Germany. Racing team is based out of Great Britain. They have George Russell, who is kind of like I said with Liam Lawson. He worked his way up. He used to race for Williams, who's a Mercedes team, and now he races for Mercedes and is their top dog. Had more points than Lewis Hamilton last year, 1 more point. And he could take the chance. He won Spa last year, but it disqualified him because he ended up not pitting his last pit. He basically ended up only pitting once. And when you do that, his tires basically wore out too much weight of the rubber. Because of that, the engineers put too less of fuel because they were expecting him to get another set of tires, burn less rubber on those, and end the race with heavier tires. And when they weigh a car, they weigh it with the tires. So when they do that, they calculate precisely how much fuel to put in it. But if he skips that last pit and keeps the tires like Lightning McQueen and keeps going, well, he's going to have more fuel than expected. And because his car burnt less fuel, because I kept one set of tires that weighed less throughout that second stint that he should have pitted, that when he went to weigh himself, it weighed too much. Then we have Kimi Antonelli, who a lot of people are excited for. Toto Wolff is very excited for. He is Italian. He is young. I think he's 18. He may have been 17. He might be 17. I knew he was 17 before this season, but I think he just turned 18. They call him a prodigy, the next Max Verstappen. The reason why Toto Wolff, who is Mercedes team boss, team principal, picked him is because he said he regrets not picking Max Verstappen. Now, Red Bull's team principal is Christian Horner. He is married to one of the Spice Girls. I forget which one. It's not Posh, though. It's not Sport. It might be Sporty. It's Ginger Spice. It's the ginger one. So that makes sense. So then we got Ferrari. Their team boss is Frederick Vasseur. I won't know all the team bosses or team principals just because, like, for bottom teams, I don't know too well, but some I might. They have Charles Leclerc, who, like I was saying before, is that Ferrari prodigy, grew up racing for Ferrari, and I think even at a young age, even like 18, was racing for Ferrari. Won his home race last year. I think he won another. He's won, I think, about 5 or 6 races so far in his career. Then we have a big deal, Lewis Hamilton. I'm going to take a sip for that one before I talk. Also hitting my vape. I said this was going to be relaxed, So Lewis Hamilton is a 7-time champion. I consider Lewis the greatest because unlike Max, and Max only has 4. Even people like Michael Schumacher, who also raced for Ferrari, a German driver who has 7. I consider someone like Hamilton better because what he grew up. He wasn't like Verstappen or Michael, whose parents were millionaires and were training him to be a racer since they were 3. Max raced since he was 3. Lewis raced since he was 6. It's a big difference, and like the money they put into their kids is just way different. Lewis's dad had a normal job. He worked in IT, and he actually worked 3 jobs to basically pay for Lewis to go into karting. And if he didn't get a sponsorship by Mercedes, he wouldn't have been an F1 driver. So it's awesome that Mercedes found him and sponsored him. Him winning that race last year, being 38 or 39, I forget it's 38, is just amazing to me. Max, a lot of drivers don't have that type of longevity. Fernando Alonso's in his 42s, but he's retired twice, I believe, at least once. So he's taken breaks throughout the years. And he hasn't been like Lewis, where he's only won 2, Lewis has won 7, and he's winning races as he's older, Lewis is. Fernando has won some, but it's been a couple years, so it's tough to compare the two. Um, Now, personally, I like Mercedes and Ferrari. Ferrari's probably my favorite team because growing up, I did like Michael Schumacher, and there's like the Italian sports of Tifosi. So that's something I'm gonna explain. Tifosi is a name for the Italian fans or Ferrari fans themselves. I say Italian fans like Italian Ferrari fans. They call themselves for Tifosi. Um, the SF and the logo right here is Scuderia Ferrari. Um, Team Ferrari, Racing Ferrari in Italian. Now, their team boss, like I said before, is Frederic Vasseur, who's actually French. They've had Italian team bosses before. It's worked out, it hasn't worked out. They've had German and French, and it's worked out and hasn't worked out. Next team is McLaren. Now, before I go to McLaren, because they're a different team of like they're a new team with the same power engine, I'm gonna talk about different powertrains. Red Bull has their own powertrain. They use Honda. Mercedes uses their own Mercedes powertrain. So does Ferrari, and so does like I was talking about before, Renault. Those are the teams that make powertrains. Now, in next year in 2026, with the new regulations, Ford is stepping in for Red Bull and basically helping them build the engine. Now, I think that's going to be very interesting because of 2 reasons why. I'll talk about that in a second. So one of the reasons why it's interesting is because Ford doesn't make a small block racing engine for a competitive series. They don't make a small block IndyCar engine. Indy only has Chevy and Honda, and they only make big block V8s for NASCAR. So I do think that Ford coming in and helping them will be good. It's better than Honda leaving them because what happened was Honda said we were done making F1 engines. We're not going to spend $1 billion to be competitive with Mercedes this regulation. They said bye Red Bull, and then Honda came back a couple months later and said, "Hey Aston Martin, we'll do a deal with you. We'll make your engines for 2026." So that's something I'm going to talk about too while I'm going through these driver lineups and explaining teams for you guys. Is explaining who's going to have power engine, what teams will have what engine power for next year and the new regulations. For new regulations next year, basically make it more electrical power, less engine power. So the hybrid's going to become a way bigger deal. So we have McLaren. McLaren has 2 team bosses, Andre Stella, who's basically the racing boss. It might be Andres. And then we have Zach Brown, who I think he's American, and a pretty cool dude. Won't lie about that one. They're powered by Mercedes. They do not make their own engines. I think they use a Mercedes gearbox too. We used to. Lando Norris is their top driver, who will probably win the constructors this year. The drivers' championship this year, not for constructors. Piastri, we were talking about before, is that young Australian. This team might be the strongest lineup besides Ferrari right now. And forget Perez isn't there, we have Liam Lawson. Next team is Aston Martin. Right now they are powered by a Mercedes engine. So a British car powered by a Mercedes engine, German engine. I don't know who makes the real engines anymore in the Martins that you buy. They have Fernando Alonso, just like Sainz we'll talk about later, Spanish, 2-time champion. He's getting older now. I think he's like 41. He might even be 43. Lance Stroll, his dad owns a company, the racing company of Aston Martin. I think he actually owns most of the car company itself now too. Lance Stroll's horrible. He really puts down the team, and if his dad wasn't the owner, the team would be doing better, and everyone says that, but it happens. Then we have Alpine. Alpine, like I said, has their own engines powered by Renault, French car company. Alpine's owned by Renault. They also have a road endurance car. They have Pierre Gasly, who is a Frenchman. He's been racing for, I think, probably over 10 years now, and has been racing under team, racing for other teams, and racing off and on for Alpine themselves or the old Renault team, because they used to be just called Renault. Then we have Jack Doohan, who is a Alpine trainee academy, is what they call it, when you race for a team since you were young, probably like 16. He's put in a lot of work doing the simulator for the team. A big problem is that Alpine got Franco Colapinto, who raced. He's Argentinian. He raced for Williams last year and did very well. A lot of people are saying that he's going to replace Doohan. Then, after Doohan, and I'm actually going to take another quick pause. We have Williams. Williams is also powered by Mercedes. They have Alex Albon. Now, Williams' team principal, I forget his name, but he was basically the ex-strategist for Mercedes during their 8 championships in a row. So he's a very smart man, and he's really helping out that team because they needed it. Alex Albon, who's been racing for about over 10 years now for different teams. He used to be Max's partner in Red Bull, which we'll talk about later. And now he races for Williams. He's pretty good. And the only problems with Williams is the car itself. They have 2 fantastic drivers now with Albon and Sainz, but the car itself is always lacking. So Carlos Sainz, next guy. One of my favorite drivers too. He raced for Ferrari last year and won a couple of races for Ferrari. In 2023, he was the only non-Red Bull driver to win a race. In 2023, besides one race, Singapore Grand Prix that Carlos won, Red Bull won every single race between Verstappen and Perez. After that, we have Racing Bulls, which are powered by the same engine, and it's basically a Red Bull's last year car. Excuse me one second. They have Yuki Tsunoda, which a lot of people like Yuki because he's been racing for a long time, but was never given his chance for a good team. He is very small, which helps out in racing. So if he was in a good car, that could help him out. The whole reason why he still has a drive is because he has been partnered with Honda. And like I said, Honda provides Red Bull's engines. Next year, he will probably be cut because of that. And that's sad because he's been there for a long time. But this whole second Red Bull team is like their academy team. Back in the day, in the early 2000s, every team had a second team. Williams is partnered with Mercedes, and it's basically Mercedes Academy. And Racing Bulls is basically Red Bull's Academy team. And they used to have Toro Rosso, used to be their old team. One second, sorry. I'm asking my girlfriend to bring me a glass of water. Getting quite parched. Alright. So after that, doing a lot of talking, we have Kick Sauber. And you see that little Kick logo? Because since they changed it on us, and it's crappy, new Kick Sauber team. So something I have here. I'm sorry. I actually missed someone on Red Bull. We have Isaac Hadjar, who's the other Red Bull driver. And this is what I was talking about when they were Academy team. Isaac Hadjar is an F2 champion, I think. Once or twice, but he's been racing for F2 for like 2 years now. So it's his turn to get into F1, so he's going to be the other driver for Racing Bulls. Like I said before, Liam Lawson, who's now a second Red Bull driver, used to race for Racing Bulls. So circling back on that, to Kick Sauber, they have Nico Hulkenberg, who is another, I don't want to say he's German, because I might get in trouble for that, but he's either like German or I don't think he's Dutch, one of those countries, driver. He's getting a little bit older now, but has a lot of experience, which helps out the team. Their second driver is Gabriel Bortoleto. He is Brazilian, and that's very good to see because we haven't had Brazilian drivers since the early 2000s, and we all know Senna was Brazilian. So it's kind of nice to see a mixture of drivers in there besides the British. After that, for the team Haas, one second, my girlfriend's bringing me water. Oh, and I'm back. Sorry about that. So, now we are on to Haas. Haas is another American team, just like Williams, but they're actually owned by an American himself. They have bases in America, in Charlotte, North Carolina, like just like the racing team. Well, Williams is just like owned by a company in America. They have Oliver Behrman, who has experience in F1 racing for Ferrari when Ferrari players get hurt or sick, and he is British. He will probably do very well for Haas. Haas is basically Ferrari's academy team now. And that's kind of how it always works and how it will work from now on because F1's so popular and they're only allowing like good teams in now, like Cadillac. They don't want to like have every team have an academy team. That'll just dilute the brand too much. After that, we have um, Esteban Ocon. He is French, raced for Alpine last year. So is Jack Doohan. He's French too. So like Alpine always likes having them double French drivers. Um, he's going to Haas this year. Alcon kind of has a hot head, so a lot of people do not like racing or driving with him. And now we are done with that. I will go back to full screen. Move this bad boy over here. I would appreciate that, guys. I know it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing right now. Um, so next week, Hunter's going to talk about the Browns. He'll talk about college football, NFL offseason. He'll also be talking about the Guardians and Cavs. Cavs are doing good right now. I'm excited for the Guardians next year as well. Right now, I'm going to talk about Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari. First, I'm going to talk about kind of like what it means for Ferrari themselves as a brand. Ferrari has never had a black driver. So this is going to be a very big deal. And a lot of people kind of don't talk about, but Italy still has an issue with race sometimes. Certain parts of Italy. If you watch The Sopranos, Tony and even everyone there knows about Northern and Southern Italians, pretty much. Because the Northern Italians are a lot of times mixed with German, French, they're more white, and the Southern Italians, since they go over to the Mediterranean and Africa a lot, they have a little bit darker skin complexion and have more African genes in them for the most part. It's not always, but that it kind of has created a division of racism in Italy. And this is a sports show, not for politics show, so we don't really have to talk too much about that. But having a black driver will help with that, I think, and I think that is exciting for the team and for the future, especially someone like Lewis, who has the history that he does. No one has podiums like he does. I think he has 200 podiums, which is crazy, over 50 race wins. He's just an insane beast of a driver. He might have 100, almost 100 race wins, or maybe it's for podiums. I don't say poles. I mean, if he has 100 poles, I'm gonna have to look that up. But for Ferrari, it's really gonna help with their brand, and a lot of people talk about this. Ferrari's stock value went up, I think, like $2 billion when they signed Lewis, and they're giving Lewis basically like $400 million, and half of that's gonna be donated. Well, I think it's matched, donated to his charities. So he basically scammed Ferrari to pay for a bunch of charities, which is really good. I think it's really gonna help. Ferrari has always like never been the team that has, and I'm gonna try to move this over a little bit. You might see it, but Ferrari has never been the team that has discovered a great driver that has have won 7 championships. Michael Schumacher has came from Bennington Ford, and even in the past, like they had, I think Fangio was a Ferrari driver, and I don't know if he started there. So like having another good driver like that, Michael Schumacher, Sebastian Vettel, guys that they've had that have passed won championships. Sebastian won championships with Red Bull before he went to Ferrari. That's going to help out their brand and their whole legacy because with Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, even though I love Carlos Sainz, he wasn't that guy that was going to win every weekend. And no guy's going to win every weekend, but at least have a chance to win every weekend. Carlos is like a top 5 guy. So having that for Ferrari is really going to change it. And like they won constructors last year, they have a high chance, Sorry, they got second in constructors last year. McLaren won. They have a high chance of winning it this year with Lewis. If Lewis gets a good handle off a car and understands how it drives, that'll be good. I was going to talk what it means for Italy, but I kind of already did that with one of Ferrari and talking about their past and their racism with Northern and Southern Italians. It's not even racism, it's just a division between two people living really on the same great peninsula. Another Sopranos quote for you. What it means for F1. I think what it means for F1, because Lewis started with McLaren, won a championship, went to Mercedes, won 6 championships, 8 in a row, 8 constructors championships in a row. If he could win another one with Ferrari, he's basically like Tom Brady, where it doesn't matter where he's at, he's going to win. And it makes him better than, even though he has 8, it makes him better than anyone else in the past. And like I've said, like because of what it's taken him to get there, he's already the best. But it puts all the haters to shame, because there's always a great debate between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen right now. And it's probably because it's a hot thing to talk about. But really it's because Max is that up-and-coming kid. Max has raced in F1. I don't think since he was 16, but it might be since he was 16. I think they changed the regulations for him. So I kind of always talk about, like, Max is good, but it took him years to get them 4 championships. So I think he's like 28 now, 27. And I think he's about to get burned out. Because like someone like Lewis didn't get to F1 until his early 20s. Well, Max was racing at 16. So a lot of people have this debate because Max has won 4 championships. He has the record for most consecutive wins, most wins in a year. But to me, it's kind of like in any other sport. You're talking about season stats versus total stats or championships. Guys could have crazy season stats. Charles Barkley. And they would not have championships. Guys could have crazy season stats. Dan Marino. And they will not have an NFL championship. It does not mean they're not Hall of Famers. They still get into the Hall of Fame. They should still be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But how you talk about them is different. No one says, oh, well, Charles Barkley's just like Irving. He's just like Russell. Like, Russell's different. I think Russell's the GOAT. But, you know, like LeBron or even guys that have chips, Kobe, Shaq. So you can't really say, like, oh, Max is Lewis without having the chips. Because the chips matter. And, like, he has the chips now. He has 4 of them. He has good season stats. We're kind of on, like, the Mahomes versus Tom Brady level right now. Well, Lewis is Tom Brady. Mahomes is the young and upcoming kid. I don't like to talk about things until they're absolutes. If you think Max will get 8 championships, well, give me the lotto numbers for next week. Like, if so, we can only talk about what's happening right now. So, yes, Max is good, goated, because of what's happening right now, but he's not the GOAT in F1 to me because of those chips. And I don't think Max will get there because Red Bull is declining right now. By the way, F1 TV just started Free Practice 1. They start early, but Free Practice 1 for F1 will start at 9:30. I wanted to get done right before then. Hopefully I can. And I do want some comments and likes and subs, so please, if you're enjoying yourself, drop a like, drop a sub, and drop a comment. What you like, maybe some constructive criticism. We got some from last, so I'm really excited for that, and we're getting better on that. I turned up my mic. I noticed I'm a quiet speaker, and Tommy's a little bit louder, and I had myself even quieter than him because I thought since I was streaming, it was going to come in differently. So I'm going to switch it up a bit for our next show. It should be more balanced. So I'm sorry about last show. I was a little bit quiet. I will be louder. So we talked about F1. Now we're going to talk about what it means for Lewis himself and his career. I think for his career, if he wins an 8th, like I said before, it will make him the GOAT. People don't have to debate about Max. Like, Max is on that burnout level because he's been racing since he was 16 in F1 over 10 years now. It's a lot. It's a lot. It would be like being a running back for 10 years and keep going. So I do kind of understand about that. And I think for Lewis, that if it shows that he could win with 3 different teams and 3 different eras. Now, if he wins now, it's the same era he's won before. But if he could win in 26 or 27, That will be insane to win in 3 different regulation cycles. That would be like in the NBA, winning in Russell's era, winning in Irving, Dr. J's era, and then winning in Steph Curry's 3-point era. It would just be unheard of. Like skill set would be crazy. So now, like I said, Hunter will talk about Guardians next week. I kind of want to talk about state of the Penguins. I don't think I'm gonna check the Penguins score real quick to see if that changed while I'm sipping my water. If that works. Penguins are up 4-3 with 5:30 left in the third. So right now, the state of the Penguins is bad. Like really bad. I was a Jarry fan. I thought him coming up and working hard would help him. And you've seen Jarry, we've seen it, have great 32, 35, 40 save games. What's bad is their defense. And having Chris Letang, I love him. We all do, but he's old. He don't play defense. He passes and tries to score. Light defense. Maybe in the Canadian game. All-Star game, maybe. But in those every day, for 100 games they play, no. And I'm sorry, they don't play 180 or whatever games they play. Yeah, he's not doing it. And then same with Gritting. Oh man, I forget his name, but I started with a K. I'm so sorry, I'm dropping on that. We got him from a Kraken. He got 100 points before we got him. Defensive guy. He doesn't play much defense either. He scores, which I get. We don't have scorers. We're all old, but we need better defenders, young guys that could hit and actually play defense. Or maybe it's a coaching thing. I don't know. I don't know hockey that much to know it. The problem is that goes to goalie issues, just like in soccer. If you're playing no defense, your goalie's going to get destroyed. And that's what's been happening. They've been bringing in Alex Nedeljkovic and this other guy. And they've been doing bad too, because when no one plays defense, no one's going to get good. That's why I say keep Jarry. Jarry has experience of getting destroyed. You want a guy that could win you a game when your defense is doing well and not lose you it, but also might win you a game when your defense is doing bad, which is all the time. Goes into the age issues. They're all old. I get keep Crosby, but Malkin, Letang, maybe let Malkin go and keep Letang. I don't know. And, like, you don't get, like, that guy from Seattle. He's older, too, and he's good, gets goals. But young guys, rebuild the team, please. Inconsistent offense with a horrible defense is not how you win any type of game, let alone a hockey game that's fast-paced. State of the Blue Jackets, Hunter will be talking about next week. We're going to be giving my F1 2025 predictions. Drivers. My real predictions for drivers would be that Lando Norris will win the championship. I really think that will happen. It is his year. He's got it underneath him. Red Bull's falling apart. Excuse me. And I think he could do it. Now, after that is what's going to be interesting. I think it'll be Charles Leclerc for Ferrari, and then Lewis for Ferrari at third. It's going to be Max at fourth. It's going to be a hard year for Red Bull. That's my realistic. It's not even fantasy. Let's think about that. Oscar Piastri. Oscar Pastrami. At fifth. So we basically get McLaren. Ferrari. Trust me. Liam Lawson's not going to be close. He might not even be top 10. Liam Lawson's young. And like we were talking about before, the problem with Red Bull is that they've always designed their car for Max, because Max has kind of been that baby that, and he's worked for it. He's worked for the Toro Rosso. He's raced for the younger teams. He deserves it. But you cannot design your car for one driver. You must design it for both. And they've been doing it for Max. Before I was talking about Alex Albon. He kept having issues with the car, saying, hey guys, can you design it for me a little bit? Like I like understeer, Max likes oversteer, vice versa, whatever. Same with Perez. Perez had to drive a horrible car for him. It works for Max, but it's horrible for him. Same with Mercedes. Back in the day when they had Lewis, Valtteri Bottas, who was the other driver, had some of the same issues, but he was able to handle it better, and they didn't design it straight for Lewis that bad. So after Piastri, I think we're going to get some Mercedes guys in there. And we probably will get George Russell. Now, do I think we're going to get Kimi Antonelli? I don't know. This is where it becomes a little iffy. Well, I do seriously think we could get some of the other guys in there. Like, looking at it, I know I'm saying I don't want, like, young guys, Liam Lawson. I think Behrman in a Haas could do better than Liam Lawson in a Red Bull. And that's only because Behrman's a better driver than Liam Lawson. And because of a Red Bull being designed towards Max. I think that might be hard. But it's probably going to be Alonso after that. And then I'll give it to Kimi Antonelli. I think our Italian could get top 10. Then I'll give it to Liam Lawson. I don't. Carlos Sainz. Liam Lawson. Alex Albon. Behrman. Gasly. Sonoda, Doohan. Hulkenberg, Ocon. Isaac Hadjar is going to be second to last. Gabriel Bortoleto will be dead last for kick. They're going to be bad. Fantasy, I'm not doing top 20. Fantasy, I want Lewis Hamilton to win. And I think he can. His first year in that Ferrari. Actually, that might not be realistic. I might not be able to think he can because it might be hard. But a different team, good team. If Ferrari's a good car, he's a good driver. Lewis Hamilton's winning. Charles Leclerc second. This is fantasy world, by the way. Kimi Antonelli third. George Russell fourth. Put McLaren after that. I'm sorry, McLaren. It's going to be a rough year if Kimi Antonelli's doing better, but that's my fantasy. I want them Italians to win. So, talking about constructors, realistic. Ferrari, McLaren. Let me get my vape. Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and maybe even Aston Martin at fifth. This is my realistic. I think Williams will do better than Alpine. And I think Haas will do better than Racing Bulls, who will be doing better than Alpine. And dead last again will be Kick. Fantasy, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, Aston Martin, Williams, Haas, Red Bull. I'm not a big Red Bull fan, as you could tell. One thing I did want to talk about is some records before we'll be done. Browns, I don't care about. Hunter could talk about that because that won't change. Same with the Guardians. Blue Jackets are currently 31-25-8 before tonight. The Cavs are 55-10, and they're going to win the NBA championship. Penguins, which I actually missed that. I'm sorry. 26-31-10. Really bad record for the Penguins. They're last in the division. Blue Jackets are doing better. We're going to talk about IndyCar real quick before we talk about the last thing on the topic. And I'm sorry we're going late. I knew this one was probably going to be long. IndyCar. The next race is the Thermal Club IndyCar Grand Prix. The race before it was for St. Petersburg Grand Prix. Or Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. Which Alex Palou won, who won the championship last year. Scott Dixon got second, and Joseph Newgarden got third. Scott McLaughlin got fourth, Marcus Ericsson fifth, Kyle Kirkwood fifth. I like, in that team, Pato O'Ward, who races for Arrow, who's McLaren's team. He is a Mexican. He got 11th. Was a bad race for him. So our last topic, and I'll take a quick sip of water, and I appreciate our viewers and everyone coming to have a good time and watch about sports on a nice night. Do not forget to drop a like, drop a subscription, or a sub if you are enjoying it. And also don't forget that we upload this right after to our YouTube channel. So if you aren't watching it live, you can watch it right after. And actually, as we're talking, I'm going to throw on for practice on my iPad. Because this one, we'll call this like the after show. Let me see if I can get some music going. Alright, we are past our time, so welcome to the after show. We'll start doing this, and if we go late on time, we'll make for, last topics, after show topics. Our last topic today will be what happened in F1 in 2021 in Abu Dhabi, last race of the year. I'm going to need a smoke before this one too, because this topic will suck. I'm going to turn down. So, what happened in 2021 is very interesting. If you're a Max Verstappen fan, you say it was fair. If you're a Lewis fan, you say it wasn't. And if you understand racing or just a basic fan, you were on Lewis's side. Becoming new to F1 after this, I didn't have any emotional attachments to it. I wasn't a Lewis fan. I wasn't a Max fan. So I was able to see it before I even liked Lewis and say, oh, why did they do that to him? So what happened was, in Abu Dhabi, it was the last race of the year. Max and Lewis were kind of tied on points. Whoever was going to win the race was going to win the championship. Lewis could have got his 8th. Max was going to get his 1st. And he ended up getting it. For the reason why, and this is facts, you can watch videos, look it up. For last lap, not for last lap, second to last lap, I believe, because they ended up subtracting some because of yellow and red flags. What happened was another driver crashed. He was driving too hard and crashed. The whole thing about 2021 is that basically they changed the rules to benefit Max Verstappen. Normally under a yellow flag or a red flag, the marshals will tell you what to do. They will tell you to stay out. Normally, on a yellow flag, that's what you do. You can, under a yellow flag, get new tires and pit. You can do this and not lose a spot under a red flag. Under certain yellow flag conditions, which the marshals will tell you, you are allowed to pit and not lose your position or spot on track. It's under certain positions. So the drivers will be talking to their engineers, their race engineers, saying, hey, am I allowed to pit? Am I not allowed to pit? So on the last lap, second to last lap in 2021, driver crashes. Lewis is in 1st, Max is in 2nd. Behind him by a decent amount. I think it was like 10 seconds. So that brings two things together. Yellow flag, it makes everyone closer together. The problem was, under the rules, if you allow people to pit under yellow flag and not lose positions, it has to be everyone. Or everyone behind the race leader. The reason why they do that is so if it's like what happened in 2021, you have five or less laps left, they want the race to be competitive. Because you're under yellow flag conditions in F1, they don't refuel the cars, they can't put more fuel in the car. So let's say you have 5 laps left, you yellow flag, and I think this is what happened in 2021, and it takes them 4 laps or even 5 laps to get that car off track and give you a green flag. You're going to be scared shitless, and sorry for swearing because I don't think I swear all day and I kind of want to keep this monetized, that you don't have fuel. or tires. So what happened was, and like the reason why they do that is because like if a race leader has old tires, everyone's gonna be faster behind them. So what happened was in 2021 there was the yellow flag. Lewis is asking, "Hey, can we pit without losing positions? Hey, can we pit, or can everyone else pit?" Well, what the stewards decided to do at the time, and they had the FIA president there, and he ended up signing a very expensive NDA and leaving after this because of a controversy, and it's his job to take the blame. They decided we're going to change the rules for entertainment. Now, oh, I don't know. I paused. I'm sorry. Um, it basically would have been if the Browns were in the Super Bowl and they were about to win, and the Chiefs got a pass interference, and they said, "Hey, we reviewed it, and it's actually not pass interference, and we're giving the Chiefs the ball, even though it's third down." Cleveland would blow up, be on fire. So I don't feel like that's fair, and a lot of people felt like it wasn't, because for rules was if you were gonna let everyone behind Lewis, if you're gonna let one person behind Lewis change tires, you have to let everyone, because now even though everyone's more competitive for the lead, everyone's more competitive towards each other. So he said only let Max get new tires. Everyone else on old tires. Max in second place. What that does is that now Max has fresh tires. People behind him don't have fresh tires to create pressure on him. So he can laser focus on Lewis. People don't have new tires behind him. Problem with yellow flags are everyone's close together once the race restarts. So if you have new tires, that really gives you the lead. So race restarts. Max blew by Lewis because he had new tires, hotter tires too, because in F1 they have tire blankets that heat up the tires. If you're under yellow flag conditions, you're not going fast. Lewis was trying so hard going back and forth to generate heat in those tires because he knew Max was going to be on fresh, hot tires, and that won him the race. Now, it is, I understand, I really do that. Like, all this stuff is entertainment. NFL, F1, it's entertainment. But you shouldn't run it like that. If you have rules, go by the rules. You don't change the rules at the last race of the year, last lap, for entertainment just so someone else can win the championship. You should make it fair and square. They should have made it that everyone had the same tires and this finished one more lap. And I won't lie, I don't even know how Max fans justify it because it's crazy to me. It is. And I really hope, I really do, that everyone here had a good night, had a good time watching. Every viewer, everyone watching later enjoys it. You guys love for screens. You love seeing what's going on. Let me pull up them live stats real quick. So right now we got Mississippi State down by 1 to Mizzou. USC beating Purdue by 8, and Purdue's ranked 20. Clemson beating SMU, but that game just started. Villanova and Connecticut, and OU and Kentucky. Florida is currently beating the Maple Leafs by 1 with about 14 seconds left. Boston's losing to Ottawa still 3-5 with a minute left, a minute and a half. Overtime for Philly with 2 minutes left. Philly and Tampa Bay. Right now, we are currently in green flag. I repeat, green flag for the F1 Australian Grand Prix Practice 1. We get to watch them right now. Right now, Lando Norris is putting out the best times. Let me make sure the Penguins are doing well. Penguins won 5-3. So good night, everybody. I hope everyone had a really good week and you're ready for your Friday to kick off your weekend. Thank God it's Friday. Have a good night, everyone. Make sure you drop a like and sub as well if you want. I really appreciate it.